Okay, now under our aging, we say we want our balance sheet to be most accurately represented. We're going to basically plug for our uncollectible allowance, uncollectible accounts expense. So our account receivable is 300, and we're going to basically say the net, based on our analysis, the net that is supposed to be collectible from this 300 is 270. Okay, so what's the difference there? That's 30. Now, does that tell us that the entry is 30? That would be incorrect. You would miss that question. So make sure you understand what's going on here. When we do our calculation here and say the net, and we get this amount right here, this is what our allowance account needs to be. This is not going to be the adjusting entry, but this is going to be, we're going to draw an arrow up here. That's going to go right there for 30. This is our ending balance. Because see, together, this is a debit on the balance sheet. This is a credit on the balance sheet. Together, they're going to equal the 270. Okay, so what if this tells us the ending balance of the allowance when we get to our entry here? It's not as simple as a percentage of sales method. Our entry is going to be what do we need to put over here or over here. It could be a debit or credit there. What do we need to put over here in order to make the allowance account equal what we just determined down here? So it had a beginning balance of 20. It's going to need another 10. So now our entry is 10. Okay? Make sure you understand what we're doing with this allowance account. Now, under the percentage of sales income statement approach, it doesn't matter what's in here. We're just going to make the entry to uncollectible accounts expense, make sure this is right. Under the aging account analysis approach, we want to get this ending balance here. We're going to plug back into that 10, and then whatever, it has to go through an extra step here to figure out what this entry is. And then that 10 is also going to come down to uncollectible accounts expense. So now, uncollectible accounts expense is kind of a secondary calculation. The allowance is our first. The other way, it was previously reversed. Okay, note receivable. Last thing in Chapter 7, page 298 to 301, there's examples of the accounts that you're going to be debiting and credit for the three different periods, three different entries that you make over the life of a note receivable. So the issuance of a note receivable, let's go through those real quick. We're going to debit note receivable, and if we're converting from an account receivable, then we're going to be taking out of an account receivable, or it could be cash if we're giving cash for a note receivable. Now remember, a note receivable carries interest, so we'll say this is 9/1. What happens on 12/31? Well, we have an adjusting entry to record interest. So we have interest receivable, and we have interest revenue as a credit. So say we had 1,000 here, okay, and say we have 12% interest. So what would be the interest for a full year? It would be 120. Here in this case, we have 4 months, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we would have an entry here for 40. Okay, and then what happens when we collect this amount? So we would collect it on 8/31, no, 8/30, 30 days in that month. Okay, so we're going to collect the full balance, $1,120. So we have the $120 of interest over the life of the note. What are our credits going to be? Well, we have 3 credits. Well, we had interest receivable, so we received that for the 40. That represents the amount of 2010 interest. Now, we also have more interest revenue. That's interest revenue, that's interest receivable. What is this amount? Well, that's the 80 for the extra 8 months. And then our note receivable for the face amount, 1,000 there. So the tricky part is making your adjusting entry and then making sure that you get the correct amounts in the receivable and the revenue piece. There's examples of that, 298 to 301, so check that out.